We're on air.
Cool.
We only have 8 hours, so we're going to try to keep this brief. Apparently the YouTube keeps us to 8 hours, so I'm going to try to keep it below that.
Welcome to the 8-hour broadcast of Training Load.
Perfect. You guys are going to be so excited about this.
Everybody suddenly leaves.
You have 7 hours and 54 minutes left of recording, so don't go away yet. It's going to be an exciting night, apparently. But no, we are here to talk about Training Load, which is a new feature that SportTracks Mobi has released on SportTracks.mobi. And so kind of want to do a couple of things before we really get into questions. It's just going to be a quick overview of the actual feature itself, a couple of different small items, and then we'll get right to your questions. We have exactly 14 questions to get through. So if nobody asked any questions, then we're not going to be able to answer them, unfortunately. The place to ask questions is going to be on Twitter. Under the, you can just tweet us directly, or you can do a hashtag #SportTracks, and that will be, we'll answer those questions as much as we can. So another way that you can do it is on the event page, and just post out there, and we'll do what we can to respond as well as answer them in live. And after the event, we're going to be responding up on the G+ page, everyone's favorite social network, afterwards. So first, I guess we're going to disappear and do a little screen share here. So hang on, Aaron's going to entertain you while this happens.
By the way, I'm Aaron Averill. I am the CEO of SportTracks and the developer of most of the app. This is my partner, Todd Mosier. We are the team behind SportTracks. Introductions
are sometimes helpful, I suppose. Name tags would have worked as well.
They have to be really big.
This room is quite a bit larger than I think either of us expected, but you know, it is what it is. So if you can't hear us, let us know. Although it's going to be tough for us to hear that. So just wanted to quickly show everyone, this is kind of the dashboard that we have. Our Training Load is located under the Health tab, and it takes into account all the different workouts that are in place. You can see here the, well, if I made that screen a little bit bigger. Oh, did that work? Mm-hmm. There we go. There is the effort there. 41 for my track workout this morning, 16 for my swim, and so forth and so forth. You'll hear us be talking about this effort value. You'll also hear us talk about TRIMP, which is another name for effort, and why we use the word effort instead of TRIMP. And so, yeah, we'll go straight over to the Health tab. And as our async processing occurs, thankfully fast, this is what we were talking about when we talk about Training Load. It's this first tab up here on the left, and let's do a quick 3-month workout because it's less depressing. So it's still depressing. So here in the green we have our fitness, which is basically a measure of my declining fitness over the year. Just been busy, I suppose. And then fatigue is a more immediate response to effort and workout intensity. Performance is potential, is one way of looking at that. At that specific moment, how efficient are you going to be able to be in an actual event or workout or activity of some sort. So, yeah, mine's been dropping throughout the year, unfortunately. But I'm going to work on that, and that's fine. So, yeah, at this point, I wanted to kind of mention a couple of quick things. You notice here, this is the present, right at the end of this line here. We do take into account planned workouts, and so I'm going to go ahead and plan out a couple of quick things I'm going to do, and then you'll see that we take into account your future workouts. So
Motivated
where
today.
are we? So tomorrow I tend to do my morning laps. Do my pool morning laps. The intensity, let's see, do it in the morning. My goal is a time goal of 20 minutes. And I do it at a moderate effort, so you can see we do an estimated effort of 16. And I'm just going to add that right there. And then I'm going to do, I do stairs on Thursdays, which I also follow up with a track workout. And it's also in the morning because that's when I'm awake. Time is usually, we'll say we'll just run 30 minutes at this for this sake. So you can see an estimated effort of 24. I do tend to work that pretty hard, so let's bump that up to about a 36. So now you see I have 2 planned workouts out here. We're going to go back over to our health tab. And you can see now that I have an increase in training load based off of you have an increase in fitness and fatigue based off of those 2 future workouts. And we have, what is that, 30-day? Looks like 30 days into the future. And so also over here, you'll see a quick dip as my performance level is reflected in my future workouts. And then once again, this theoretical algorithm of if I did nothing else, that would be the curve of performance that my body would follow theoretically.
So the reason Todd sees a dip here in his performance is because his fitness is pretty low because he doesn't have a lot of weekly volume on his workouts, and so he's hitting these 2 hard workouts in a row, and so you see that his performance is going to drop until his body kind of catches up with the performance improvement from those workouts. So the model accounts for that, and what we see here is kind of expected.
Absolutely. So as you run through a full training plan, if you're training for a race of any sort, you can see a full 30 days ahead of you of what your expected performance should be.
And in the ideal scenario, you would lay out more of your workouts for the season, and so this curving line here would reflect the reality of your planned workouts rather than just a constant decay from not doing any workouts at all. So you get a nice bumpy line off into the future as well, which predicts your performance peaks.
Do you want me to throw in a couple later on, or think we're good with that?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, we're gonna come back to the our beautiful mugs. So I think, yeah, I guess that's us again.
So that's pretty much it. You've got workouts in your history that estimate your effort, and you've got planned workouts in your future, and using those statistical models that we're basing our calculations off of, you can see projected training load, fitness, and fatigue. So 3 curves going off into the future as well as the past. You can use the Health tab to inspect those, and we're probably going to build out a lot more features in the future to drill into a lot of that detail more, but right now you have the basic curves of your training load and your fitness and fatigue.
Yeah, it's actually going to be pretty exciting doing all that. It's going to be fun building out some more features around training load and performance. So we're going to get started with questions that we've had. These come from a lot of different sources. Some of them just emails in from users, some of them through support forums, some of them just more general social forums, Facebook. Yeah. So
people I meet on the street.
Rarely do they ask you about training load. Rarely. If they do, I want to see a photo. So what is the recommended TRIMP value for a hard workout?
So in our world, TRIMP is effort, because TRIMP, we want to make these things accessible, and training load's been around for 30 years, and we think it's kind of time to move away from these acronyms and things and get more at the essence of what TRIMP is, which is effort. So effort is a point scoring system that can go up to a maximum of 2 points per minute.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are working out at your maximum solid without a pause for an hour, you will see a effort score of 120.
It's pretty much impossible.
Pretty much impossible. Anything off of that is going to decrease. So for a hard workout, you might see, an hour-long hard workout, you might see something in the 80 or 90, depending on, how far into your power zones you're going and how far into your heart rate zones and pace zones, and for how long you're doing that. If it's a constant fast workout, or if it's kind of more of an interval workout.
You'll also see, it depends on the type of workout that you're doing and the duration of it, because it is aggregated by minute. If you have a 4-hour slow run, that could really get a high effort value, even though it's not necessarily a high intensity throughout the time period. You can still accumulate quite a high effort value.
Yeah, so the maximum is 120 per hour. If you're doing a 4-hour workout, simple math is 480, but
120 per minute. No, per hour.
Per hour. So if you're doing a moderate workout, you still might expect that 4-hour workout to be 150, 200, 250 effort.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things. If you're planning out your workouts, you can estimate that value of what you're going to be wanting. Yeah, so one of the other comments that we get is, my effort seems high. And so you kind of want to talk about how you're able to judge if your effort is high or low, or some of the different factors that go into play.
So there's two kind of aspects to this. One is comparing effort to other systems, and one of the things you have to keep in mind is all these other software systems, they have a maximum point scale just like we have a maximum point scale, and the 120 that you can get per hour may be 100 in some of the other software packages out there. So you can't really compare across software, different software packages. But another common mistake is you don't have your zone set right. And so one of the important things with effort is to make sure you have your zone set right under the account settings, since everything is based off of how far into your zones you go. So if it seems like you have a high effort, it may be that your zones are set too low, and you're actually going way into your high zones when in reality you weren't. So you need to go edit those, and the trimps will update.
Do you want to talk at all about setting your heart rate zones and how that affects recording? So one of the things that is, I think, a really interesting feature, which doesn't necessarily get talked about a lot, is the fact that your effort values are calculated off of your heart rate zones or power zones or pace zones, depending on what data is available. But it's not just a static value. We track your zones over your history, so that if you have a zone from 2011 that was appropriate for your body at that point, and then change it later, we're going to make sure that those effort values are calculated based off of your zones at that time. And so as your body improves and whatnot, it's very much possible that you have the same workout, the same effort, but if you changed your zones, it's going to actually be a lower value.
In fact, you would expect that. If your fitness level is changing and you're looking at an hour run from 2 years ago, it would be really strange if the effort is the same, because your fitness level is changing. So the same workout you did, the same pace, several years ago for the same duration or distance, it's going to change. And that's kind of,
and it should change,
how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. One of the things we hear about is negative performance. So it happens generally when training starts. When you just start a training plan and you're really ramping up, that really is the time that you're going to see performance go zero. And kind of going to talk about some of the implications of what that means.
Yeah, so one of the comments we got was, what's going on? My performance chart just went below zero. And it turns out that if you are not trained, so your fitness level is low, and you hit your workouts really hard, you're actually going to see that performance chart go negative because your fatigue will increase quicker than your fitness is increasing. Remember, fitness is, according to the model, it takes longer to kick in, whereas fatigue is really quick. And so what you'll see is your fatigue will ramp up really quickly. Your fitness is taking longer to catch up, and you'll see your performance actually goes negative until your fitness improves over your fatigue, and then it goes into positive territory. So that's normal if you're ramping up your training really quickly from not really having much base. It kind of depends on how you work out. If you're working out throughout the year and always kind of working out, or if when you're not training you just completely shut it off.
And one of the things to add to that is when your fatigue exceeds your fitness, I think that's a real clear sign that you're really at a risk of injury at that point. You're really stressing your body, which is what you want to do to build up mileage and build up intensity and build up capability. But at the same time, it's a risk that you're adding onto it, and that's one of the ways that you can start to measure that risk. There's a lot of ways of counteracting that, but at the same time, that's one of the ways to actually get a measure on how the level of your injury risk. Which kind of actually goes nicely into our next question, which is one of the comments we get, which says, my fitness and my fatigue mirror each other. They just go together as they go across. What's that all about?
Yeah, so if you are training at a constant rate month over month over month, and you're not going up or down in your training load, the model will actually predict this, and it will level out. So the kind of theory behind this is that you need to change the stress on your body to improve your performance. So if you go into a state where you're constantly applying fitness fatigue against your body, then you're going to see your charts kind of mirror each other for a while. And it won't be until you increase your training load that you see those separate, or stop working out, and then you'll see them close, which you probably don't want if you're going into a race. But throughout a lot of the year, if your training isn't going up and down, you are going to see these mirror each other. And if you zoom out, which the software allows you to go see all your data, and some of you I know have 5-7 years of data. If you zoom out at that level, yeah, you're basically going to see the graphs mirror each other. So it's kind of normal.
So talking about data, what types of data we're able to handle, what types of data we like to see, what's the ideal. One of the things that we, there's other competitors out there who also estimate effort of workouts and whatnot, and they have different terms for them. So looking at some of the competitors, they only take bike rides with power. I mean, we'll say it's Strava. Only takes bike rides with power. They don't estimate values on workouts that don't have that data, as far as I know. Could have changed it very recently.
We heard this directly from a customer, and they said they were concerned that they needed a power meter, or they were concerned that they needed a heart rate monitor. And our philosophy is that we will take any data that you throw at us. And you can look at the blog post for details, but we basically have a tiered approach. So the more detailed and more precise your data is, then we'll use that. And if you don't have that, then we fall back to more simplified models, where at the very lowest end, we're just taking basically the duration times the intensity that you enter in. And at the very highest level, we incorporate things like power, heart rate. We incorporate things like pace or speed, and we even incorporate things like the hills and elevation that you're going up and down. So we toss all that together and try to come out with an effort value for pretty much every workout, and not just limit it to only the ones where you have power data. So I think it's something we kind of differentiate on.
It's one of the things that kind of goes as a corollary of that, I would say, is that the better the data that you are able to record and measure, the better the analysis of that data. So if you only have, duration, that's fine, and we'll handle that, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's as accurate as, a power meter that's measuring actual output that you're producing as you climb up a hill. Those are kind of two totally separate metrics that have each their own pros and cons, but it's just a matter of getting the best data possible, but at the very basis of that is getting data.
Yeah, it's great because if you're not really there yet, you can use simplified means, and if you spend all the money to get all this kit, then you can use the more advanced sensors, which is nice.
Yeah.
That really brings us to the next one, which is, can I use this with workouts that I don't even have a GPS watch with? And you can. You can enter your manual workouts for any of the 100 categories that we allow. You can enter your, I played volleyball last weekend, and you can enter that. I can enter an hour of moderate intensity volleyball, and it'll pop out an effort value, and it'll incorporate it into my training load, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's one of the nice ways of incorporating workouts that you didn't measure, and yet still have an impact on your performance, your training load, and just because you didn't measure a basketball game on a Saturday or a soccer game on a weekend doesn't mean that it didn't impact your body's reaction to all the activity and how it needs to recover.
Yeah, don't go out and play 4 hours of soccer before your marathon and expect that your performance isn't going to be affected. So the model.
I mean, I guess you could, but you just lower your expectations based off of that.
That's really. So
less than ideal. I think that's a good way of looking at it. Do you want to talk about how we calculate training load at all, or do you want to defer to the blog on that one? I mean, I think we've talked about it a little bit.
We've gotten a lot of questions on, the mechanics behind it and the algorithms and what data it's taking in. And you can go to our blog and you can read all about basically what we use from your data. It's these algorithms are not something we made up. We're using physiological models that have been around for decades, and we're just applying them. So we've explained all that, and we have no problem explaining how we use your data to calculate your performance metrics. It's an open book.
I mean, we're not inventing these algorithms at all.
Nope.
These are things that have been peer-reviewed and certified, and there's people way smarter than us that have come up with these, and we're implementing them, and that's the extent of what we're really doing. It's a totally different task to try to come up with a new algorithm, and so we're just bringing this research and putting it in front of you in the most accessible way possible, I think. So training plans. How do you use a training load when you're planning a marathon?
I don't have a good answer for that. That's an entirely separate. Yeah.
I mean, in a lot of ways, this feeds into some of the upcoming features that we really want to start incorporating and making this a much smoother interaction. The way I would say it is, we need to make sure in the middle of a training plan that your fitness is going up, and that you also incorporate times for recovery.
I see where you're.
And so as you plan out the workouts, it's basically a way of saying, am I going to be able to achieve my goal? There's a kind of the concept behind it is that if you are able to reach your peak performance number at the race, you should be able to actually plan it out, and if you stick to that goal, you're going to be at your peak performance. and you can mitigate risk through your fatigue fitness curve, and kind of trying to maintain that. You'll also be able to see as you run your actual workouts, do they match the estimated effort that you were really expecting? You might find that you need to reset your heart rate zones in the middle of it, and that throws your effort calculations in a different way. I mean, it's not an inaccurate way, it's just a totally different way that would affect possibly your training plan. You might need to adjust either your expectation, your goal time, or the training plan to be able to match that. This is a good one for you. Is training load the same as training stress score?
So training stress score is analogous to training load that we implement, but it's a different model. So I've got this question several times. In principle, it's measuring the same thing, which is your performance and a workout and how it affects your fatigue and fitness. So workouts do two things. With these training load models, workouts do two things. They make your body stronger and they make your body tired, and those are modeled in the model. And TSS and training load, as we implemented, both do the same thing. Now the models are slightly different, and there's actually other models out there. And we can, if you want to know about this, we can send you stuff through email if you want to start researching about it. But if you're familiar with TSS, you should be familiar with training load, and the principles are very, very similar. So
does that mean I'm able to see my ATL and CTL?
ATL and CTL are analogous to the fitness and fatigue. Yeah.
So ATL is the acute training load, and CTL being the constant training load. Once again, this is a little bit of a way of us making these algorithms a little bit more approachable.
Yeah. So they're apples and apples, but they are different varieties of apples. So
Honeycrisp?
Honeycrisp, yeah, maybe.
We got the question, what happens if I change my zones? I think
we answered
we
that,
covered
right?
that one. Yeah, we covered that one. Why is this different than the training load plugin? So we're talking about SportTracks 3 at this point, not SportTracks Mobi. And there's two different similar features between the two. One is the training load feature that we're talking about now, and one is a training load plugin that goes into SportTracks 3.
Yeah, so the training load plugin that most people use, which is called training load, because there's another one, in SportTracks 3 uses I believe it uses the TSS model. So you will not see the same numbers, but again, as we covered earlier, the principles are pretty much the same. Workouts stress your body, workouts make your body stronger. Those modeled over time show how your performance is going to be in the future. So even though the training load plugin is using a different model, the principles can be applied, and you should be able to transfer one to another. Now, you're not going to see the same numbers, so it's kind of like you got to decide on which system you're going to use. There is another plugin, which I think is called the Daily Mile plugin, that allows you to use the Bannister model, which is our model. So if you really want them to look identical in the PC app with the plugins available there and on the Mobi site, it can be done, and we can tell you how to do that with tweaking the parameters so that you get exactly the same charts.
Yeah, it is the Daily Mile plugin, I believe.
Yeah.
Great, so trying to see if we have any live questions, but it doesn't seem so at this moment. So moving forward on some of the other questions we've had, what's a good performance level for a triathlete? What's a good number?
I've seen numbers in the 600 to 800 range for performance. for people doing longer distances, like half marathon and up, triathlons and up. If your performance isn't reaching those levels, probably gonna have a slow race.
Jerk.
Predicted by the model. So this is what the model will predict. Your mileage may vary, literally. But
I mean, I think one of the things to point out is that performance levels are not necessarily across the board comparable. So you see people will have different types of zone setups. If you have a 10-zone setup as opposed to a 3-zone or a traditional 5-zone, that's going to affect the entire effort level, because you're really skewing the algorithm. It's not necessarily that you're skewing it in a bad way. It's just that if you set up 10 zones and say, I really want to finely tune exactly where I'm at, but maybe that ends up being zones 4, 5, and 6, and zones 7, 8, 9, 10 are danger zones for health reasons or whatever it may be. Those are going to affect your actual performance levels. So I'd say there's a lot of mitigating factors that would need to be taken into consideration before you start worrying about your performance at a 400, 500 number, and start worrying about your marathon being terrible.
Yeah, the thing you really need
to giving them hope.
The thing you really need to look for is your performance should be increasing while your fitness level is also increasing. If your fitness level isn't increasing and your performance level is increasing, that's probably not good as defined by the model. Conversely, if your fitness level is going up and your performance level is coming down, that means fitness and fatigue the gaps are closing, and it probably means you're overtraining. Now it depends where you're at in your training plan, right? So if you're going to taper soon, then that may be the perfectly appropriate thing, because then you'll see a spike.
I mean, that would be a good time for recovery week.
Yep.
Where you're able to maintain your fitness while your fatigue recovers, and so that gap once again returns to a healthier threshold.
Yep. And you can, again, in the blog, there's a blog post that walks through kind of hypothetical scenarios with tapers and recovery weeks and incremental 10% increases in effort every week. And you can kind of look at how the training load charts look for all those scenarios, and you can read the narrative, and it kind of points out what is happening in the charts and how it's reflected in your training.
So last question we got here. It's basically this concept of, I worked out yesterday and my effort score was 40, but I worked out last week, the exact same workout, and it was 35 or 32, and it was down, but it felt just as hard. What are some of the things that would affect that type of discrepancy?
So this is one of the double-edged swords of metric-based training, right? The numbers don't lie. So if the workout last week seemed a lot harder and your effort was lower, it probably means your perception is off. But it could mean that the model is not accounting for other things going on in your life, right?
Nutrition fail.
Nutrition, you're tired. I mean, the training load doesn't take into account how much hours of sleep you get. So it's not a total and complete picture. It's a measure of how your workouts are affecting your performance, not how everything else is affecting your performance. So that may be where you see some discrepancy between numbers and perceived effort. The other side of the coin is maybe your perception is off, and so it's good to see the numbers as well as an additional input into your fatigue.
There's some interesting thought around perceived exertion, and it's really difficult for an athlete or anybody to really estimate accurately their exertion throughout a activity. And the reason for this is that it's naturally skewed towards the last third or half or whatever that last kind of major segment is. So if you go on a 3-hour run, really what you tend to be, and this is, just generally speaking, not to every individual, but generally what happens is that of your 3-hour run, when you ask how hard was your run, you're thinking of the last 30 minutes. Like, that's really what sways that level of how hard did I work out. It's just that last section, as opposed to, oh, I remember I was actually really cruising it, around hour 2, and I really felt good on the first 30-minute incline or whatever. It's that, oh, this last 30 minutes really, really was difficult, and so I'm going to apply that across the entire workout. When that's one of the nice things about measuring your data is that
30-minute incline.
Long hill, man. I mean,
it's a really long hill.
I can guarantee you, there are people that will show us data for a 30-minute incline.
If you have data with a 30-minute incline, drop whatever you are doing right now and send it to us. We want to see it. Really, I would love to see that. A
30-minute. How about? I mean, the Kaweka.
Yeah, those guys are insane, though.
Yeah. Those guys. Okay, that's about the last question I have. I do want to give a quick shout out to one of our nutrition partners, Energy Bits. They do performance supplements, or not food, performance food. It actually is, I've been using for a little bit, and it's actually quite nice. It really gives a sustained energy throughout the workout. So that is my awesome shout out to one of our awesome partners who we really enjoy being part of. So beyond that, do you have anything else? Closing comments? We can do a quick check on the feeds.
This is something we're kind of trying out.
Yeah.
So we want to hear from you.
If you like it, if you don't.
If you like it.
We should wear masks.
If you didn't watch it and never even heard about this, we don't want to hear from you. But if you liked it, let us know, and we'll put together more of these. It's kind of fun. It's late at night here in Durham, North Carolina. But
cold.
We're happy to come in and do this.
Yeah.
And talk about making you more fit.
I mean, the biggest thing is if this is successful, we'll absolutely do more. We love talking about the product. It's something that we really live and breathe, and so it's a lot of fun for us to talk about all different aspects of it, whether it's design, whether it's application. It's, hey, I've always wanted X, Y, and Z to happen, so can you guys do that? That's the type of thing. I mean, it'd be fun once we get enough people to come in, just do a live feature request and talk about some of the different things.
Yeah, we'll whiteboard it.
We'll whiteboard it. We got a whiteboard right there. Not a problem. So yeah, we'd love to hear from everyone. If you have some additional questions, don't feel like you missed out. Absolutely feel free to post them on the Google event page. We'll be monitoring that and active on there. So that's another opportunity to engage with us. So we hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope you get out and train and use your training load and performance. And yeah, that's I guess, is that a wrap?
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.